What creepy cults that brainwash people should we be more aware of? Story 1. Ramtha's School of Enlightenment. Very creepy cult that is based in the next town over from the one I grew up in. Basically, this lady says she channels the warrior Ramtha and spews out bat-shoot crazy stuff, like how when Mount Rainier erupts, lizard people will escape from it. You can see her ranch from an old highway, and her barns are plated in copper with very expensive chandeliers in them and all the works. It's really unsettling. You have to pay thousands for her school, and it's hard to walk away from it. People leave their families and lives behind to be able to keep paying for her classes. My cousin used to be a Ramster. He doesn't talk about it much, but he did say that the way you get sucked in is very Charles Manson-esque. Lots of LSD, nudity, and just weirdness. This was in the 90s though. I don't know if the cult still draws people in that way anymore. Edit. Read up on it more. It is a self-help, become your own god type of thing. So I guess that's the allure of it. Answer. Ha! My sister used to live in the same little town where their compound is. Always found it amusing. And, as if there wasn't enough evidence that the documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know, is all bunk. They talked to Ramtha, or whoever the woman in charge of the organization is, several times. Wasn't Elizabeth Taylor a member of theirs for a while too? Hilarious. Hilarious. Story 2. The autism cures people. These people legitimately advocate for putting industrial bleach up their kids' butts and in their mouths, all in the name of curing said kid's social disorder. Edit. Ripe my inbox. To everyone asking, there are petitions to make this illegal, but as of right now, due to some loophole or other, it technically isn't. And yes, I'm as pissed off about that as the rest of you. Also, I too have autism, high functioning, and my brief encounter with the local Autism Speaks people back when they were a separate thing is how I learned about this bullshittery. Answer. So, I guess autism speaks and cure. Autism combined into one super force of awfulness. That's why I was confused a bit for a second. I remember the actress Kim Rhodes completely losing her shoot on Twitter when she found out that those organizations were sponsoring a supernatural marathon. She has an autistic daughter and said she didn't even care if she lost her job on Supernatural. She wasn't willing to stand silent while those monsters got to sponsor a marathon of SPN. At the time, I know that Autism Speaks was bad, but wasn't sure why. After reading this, I am 100, belatedly, in Kim's rage train. Fudge those guys. Story 3. The Japanese cult Happy Science. Why do all the crazy cults have science in their name? Their premise is peace, love, and all that bullshit, yet they have a political party that has some of the craziest war ideas and even denies major events like the Nanjing Massacre. Yes, they are so big that they even have a Japanese political party. I accidentally walked into one of these temples in Japan, thought it was a bookshop, which it was on the bottom floor, but then you walk upstairs into an idol worship room. The Japanese religion worships El Cantare, a supreme spiritual being that their leader claims to be an incarnation of. While I was in said temple, I was forced to drink coffee, like what the fudge, exorcised of demons and negative energy, and given a spiritual gift of communication, whatever that means. The latter two being performed by a priest in a crazy cult outfit with a crazy cult like Gold Dagger and Gold Hourglass, while a whole bunch of Happy Science members walked in with their cult necklaces. Oh, and when I finally did get out of there, they gave me a flyer, the best part of which is that it said their leader Okawa could channel the spirits of various people past and present, including Jesus Christ, Buddha, and President Barack Obama. They also apparently are spreading not worldwide. This needs to stop. Story 4. The 100 bananas a day diet. People post on their forum complaining of throwing up blood. IDK, why anyone would willingly participate. Edit. It's 30 bananas. Remembered the wrong number. Answer. One banana is 105 calories per a quick Google search. So 100 bananas per day would be 10,500 calories. Talk to any doctor, nutritionist, dietitian, anybody. They'll tell you that you should eat something like 1,500, 2,000 calories per day, depending on your weight, activity level, etc. Hell, The Rock's diet is like 5,000 calories per day, and he's spending multiple hours in the gym every day. And I can fudge guarantee you that he's not wasting minutes at a time looking at his phone in the gym. So how the fudge is eating 10,000 calories per day a good idea? Story 5. Herbalife. I'm still hoping all those things people in that cult of idiots say are just for show and not honest opinions. Answer. I dislike Herbalife. I was struggling to lose weight, so a friend offered to take me to a weight loss support group. It was Herbalife. Everything was, if you don't have all of our products, now you will never lose weight, and really shamey if you didn't purchase stuff when you were there. That's when I realized my friend's house was full of goddamn Herbalife. Then she got upset when I stopped going to meetings, never purchased anything Herbalife through her or the meetings. Story 6. What about the 3,000 Thermomix I see some of my old friends peddling on Facebook? I have to tell them they're not entrepreneurs or my friends anymore. Story 7. Moonies. I was caught off guard whilst in the house on my own and answered the door them. Half an hour later, I was in the bath being baptized by a kinda rapey-looking dude until my girlfriend came home and kicked them out. Story 8. ATI, Advanced Training Institute, founded by Bill Gothard. Extremely conservative homeschooling group that is extremely patriarchal. The members treated Gothard as God and took his word about anything. They had several locations where families worked there, mostly unpaid, and were required to follow the rules set by the leader. I prefer to call them compounds, as you had to sign in and out if you wanted to leave so that the leadership knew where you were at all times. No televisions allowed, very restricted internet access, and all meals had to be had together at a specific time. Gothard always kept young, beautiful women as his assistants, and families gladly sent their daughters to work, unpaid, for him. He was sued for intimacy assault by many of those girls afterwards. How do I know all this? My family was a part of this organization for years and lived in one of their compounds for a stint. 2 of my sisters were sent to their headquarters to be groomed, to be assistants. Thankfully, one of them left as soon as she turned 18, had extended family come pick her up, and the other was sent home because she bought a ripstick and it was considered unladylike. Fudge. Gothard, fudge ATI. Answer. The members treated Gothard as God and took his word about anything. As someone who grew up Catholic around a lot of other mainstream Christian denominations, this is the part that always weirds me out about these sects. They honestly don't seem to be really into Christianity all that much. It's not the wacko conservative rules. Plenty of mainstream Christians are patriarchal and conservative. It's the fact that I honestly don't get the impression that they're doing all that much worshiping of Jesus. When I went to church as a kid or visited my friends' churches, people talked about Jesus, God, Christ in very specific, even familiar terms, like Jesus was actually your father or the boss you take orders directly from. We talked a lot about what Jesus and friends actually did and said as outlined in the Bible, which carried some pretty major messages. Human representatives of God came up, but not in the same way. They weren't held up almost to the level of Jesus. The Pope said this or that about Harry Potter. Well, okay, but that doesn't seem important enough to work into church doctrine. These fringe denominations, I feel, don't do a lot of that. It seems like there's a very distant, vague relationship with the Lord. Which Lord? Lord of what? And a lot of talking about how the Lord, whoever he is telling some guy who is very special indeed about the minutiae of day-to-day life. Maybe I shouldn't be telling other people how to Christianity, because I stopped doing it quite a while ago, but that really strikes me when I encounter people in these groups or see them on TV. Story 9. All those little churches run by a couple for their business. The one in my town says that unless you speak in tongues, you are not saved. Every single attendee that I used to be friends with are off their rocker. They have claimed to speak in tongues during church. I'm like, you're just a soccer mom, not a prophet. Answer. When I was in college, I was the only guy in my circle of friends that had a car, and I usually drove a group of us to church on Sunday. We'd been church hopping for a while, trying to find one with a good fit. Someone recommended a local Pentecostal Holy Roller church, so we gave it a try. We all piled into my Chevy Blazer and away went, including Seth, who was legally blind. Church seemed pretty normal until the first hymn started and half the congregation pulled out random musical instruments. Tambourines, kazoos, one guy even had a saxophone. There was no cohesion, no music, just a loud cacophony of noise. The pastor came down, borrowed a baby from someone, and started waltzing down the aisles. A bit later, the chanting and speaking in tongues started. None of us knew what to think. On the drive back to campus, we were all too stunned to say anything and drove in silence. I realized that we had totally neglected to tell Seth we were going to a different church today when he commented, "Guys, was it just me, or was today's service a little different than normal?" Story 10. Children of God, aka family international salvation wrapped up with child abuse, intimacy abuse, takedown, tragic end. Joaquin and River Phoenix grew up in the cult. Their parents were members. Story 11. Landmark education. They make you attend seminars and classes, which you pay for, to help you realize your potential. They make you examine your life and make drastic changes, then go out and recruit others. Absolutely the most cultish thing I have ever come into contact with. Lost a girlfriend to it about 15 years ago. They sucked her in via her business school classes. She then tried to recruit her brother and I. At that point, we were already having problems. I had had enough and split. Zero regrets. Answer. This here needs more attention. I attended a seminar under guise of, "You studied psychology, you'll find this interesting." Everything about it is meant to bring down your guard and persuade you from the speeches you're given to the layout of the room. They have people give really emotional talks to make you sympathize. Nearly everyone cried about how terrible their life was before Landmark. They ask you not to go to the bathroom during the seminar, which was 3 hours or so long. Also, the chairs were super close together, so if you did get up, everyone would notice as you awkwardly had to shuffle over people. They also give homework to bring new people to meetings. It helped that the person who asked me was my very, very attractive female friend. Story 12. Scrum. It's the new religion in the workplace. Edit. I'm not against the process itself, but there are some folk at my workplace who take it way too seriously. Answer. Way too seriously is right. We have a senior PM we've nicknamed Book Report because all he does is tell us how this latest book he read on Agile can help us, how safe methodology is the future, that we're all in this together, that we own the process. He sounds like a darn televangelist. We get it, man. We've been doing it this way for years. Just shut up about it and actually contribute something other than your blathering. Story 13. Dr. Sebi Devotees. He's some snake oil salesman that markets all kinds of garbage products that are supposed to treat diabetes and cure HIV and things like that. It's marketed mostly at less educated African Americans. His products have a very devoted following, to the point they forego actual medicine to treat serious illnesses. I call them C-bites. Story 14. Not exactly a cult, but the kinds of people who go on about Big Pharma being evil so they can sell you some bee venom wrinkle cream and a shiny rock or two. It's pretty fudge up how these people think they're so smart and onto it when they're really more gullible than anyone. Story 15. The Teachers Group. All those Planet Aid donation bins for you to drop off used clothes? They're being sold to fund a dangerous cult called the Teachers Group. The money is going directly into the leaders' pockets. They do this common salary thing where they pay a salary to their members working overseas and then take all that money back. Basically, just a form of money laundering. And their programs haven't done anything they say they're going to do, despite receiving millions in grant money to help develop struggling countries. They are a huge fraud and a huge cult. Don't donate your used clothes to Planet Aid. Story 16. Jehovah's Witness. I have close part of my family that belongs to it. It's ridiculous the way they act about certain things. Answer. I knew this was going to be here. Both sides of my family are part of the truth, and it's caused nothing but heartache. My parents are the only people who've left the religion, and now for the most part they aren't spoken to or acknowledged by any other family, the exception being my mom and grandfather, who's had a small revelation after he had a heart attack. My disfellowshipped mother went from our town in one state to another city in another state to be with her favorite uncle as cancer was taking his life. She went to say goodbye, as they were very close and he didn't take the JW ideology nearly as seriously as everyone else. She spent what little money she had getting there, only to be told by everyone that the comatose man she loved would only be filled with disappointment and they shouldn't even be talking to her. She spent the next 4 days in a hospital waiting room, broke and waiting to get on her return flight home, totally shunned by all the people she'd grown up loving and being loved by. Her mom, aunt, the cousins she babysat for years, her brother and his family. No one so much as looked at her. I've never seen someone as hurt as she was when she came home from that trip. Now my sister and I are filled with animosity towards our grandparents and extended family. It's supposed to be a religion based on love, but they have only taught how to shut your mind and dislike anyone who doesn't. T-Edal Dar. For a very personal reason, fudge JWs. Story 17. The Japanese cult Aum Shinrikyo. They spent years planning terrorist attacks, had strongholds with chemical factories inside them, and contacts in the government as well as with intellectuals and scientists who supported them. The worst part is they are still around, just under supervision. They did the Tokyo sarin attacks. Story 18. Did you watch Holy Hell, the documentary about this on Netflix? I was stunned. Stunned that all those people could be so devoted to such an insane creep. How it happens is pretty scary, though. How someone could completely lose control of their own mind and give it up to another person to control. Story 19. LaRouches. They fly below the radar because they're not religious, and their politics aren't necessarily even all that radical in the traditional left-right sense, but it is some weird stuff with some very cult-like characteristics. Story 20. Fox News? Hear me out. If you've ever watched Fox News, you'll notice they talk a lot about the mainstream media, as though they're not a part of it. They work very hard to inoculate their viewers against any other sources of information that might hurt their ultra-conservative narrative. Rush Limbaugh and his ilk are offered as sources of information and evidence. The purpose is to lock people into a funnel of propaganda. It results in people who scoff at NPR and PBS as news sources, when they're actually the best, most balanced news available. It causes people to say, "Fall, everybody knows." That newspapers are liberal. It causes them to hold patently false beliefs and to doubt experts. There's a segment of conservatism that is a cult, and Fox News is the chanting preacher on the dais. Story 21. Anti-vaccine advocating, and a lot of that other naturopathic crap. No base in science, and actively making our society less safe. Story 22. While they're pretty much gone now, save for their small, sheltered spin-off, Aum Shinrikyo were some pretty nasty folk back in their heyday. Last podcast on the left recently made a whole special on them, definitely worth checking out. And holy shoot, were they nutcases. They went full ISIS well before Al-Qaeda did. Story 23. Honestly, Jehovah's Witnesses. For decades, thousands of kids have been molested, and they do not believe in contacting the police about it. People are getting sick and dying without blood transfusions. And once you're in, it's almost impossible to get out. You will be shunned and your family will be forbidden from speaking to you. If you even disagree with the doctrine after joining, they actually teach that you are mentally diseased. Story 24. Scientology. There's a big-ass hospital-sized building in Los Angeles. How those individuals fell for that bullshit is beyond my understanding. Edit. Everyone's saying how obvious this answer was, as if it didn't need to be mentioned. If cancer spreads, it obviously hasn't gotten enough attention, eh? Answer. There is a podcast on MaximumFun.org called Oh No Ross and Carrie that did, I think, 7 episodes on Scientology. The premise of the show is they take whatever weird, probably doesn't work thing, like Ouija boards or miracle cures, and test them out. With Scientology, they go to the LA org and sign up to be Scientologists, then go through every little bit about how they are being turned into new little peace creatures. It is pretty interesting, although the 7 whole episodes was a bit overkill for me. Still worth a listen. Story 25. Beachbody Fitness. Like Jesus Christ, my mom is obsessed with them and their workout programs and pays so much money for shoot, you could just look up on YouTube. Plus, they have these things that help you start your own business and have meetings with speakers who built their business and make millions a year. But they are really only there to encourage them to try to keep making their own businesses. It's just stupid. And working out and getting help for losing weight and stuff is definitely a positive for anyone. But you don't need to spend darn near $400-something on their products like Jesus. Story 26. Buddhafield. Lasted 22 years until it was revealed the leader was intimacy and psychologically abusing several male members of the cult and also required female members to have abortions if they got pregnant. The original cult fell apart, but the leader is gradually collecting new followers. To warn people away, ex-members even made a documentary called Holy Hell. It's a great watch if you have time. Story 27. Any meditation group that expects you to pay money just to chant in an incense-filled room, I'm looking at you, Transcendental Meditation. That shoot is a cult recruitment disguised as meditation. It can fudge you up. They convince you that you have superpowers and make you pay more to go up the hierarchy. I always thought cults were an American thing until recently. If you want to learn how to meditate, there are free resources out there. Story 28. Campus Crusade for Christ, sometimes called CREW or CCC. It's a Christian men's organization popular on many college campuses, and it's basically a cult. I went to a Methodist school and it wasn't super Christian or anything, an ordinary college really, but CREW was something different. It had a lot of respect among campus management because local pastors it was Christian, but a bad reputation among students who weren't into that stuff. I still remember it vividly. Freshman year, first week of college, going to the organization fair, because I was excited to join some kind of club or something. I guess I looked lost or alone, and someone who wasn't with any of the regular clubs approached me and started talking about this men's club. Being that I was a practicing Catholic at the time, I decided to try it out. First meeting, they talked about nothing other than self-care and how evil it was. Just met these people, and first thing they ask is how frequently I jack off. After several meetings, I'll admit they had me feeling really bad about myself, convinced I was just an awful and depraved person. They wanted to control every aspect of my life, only associate with other members of crew. Always let crew know where you're going and who you're with. You had to show your laptop's browser history, and it had better not be cleared at each meeting, and definitely no association with women for any reason. And for a while, I actually did all this. Well, I didn't mean for this to be a long story. Snapped out of it, realized I was being manipulated and brainwashed, stopped going to their meetings. I didn't start calling myself an atheist until many years later, but in hindsight, my experience with crew was the first time I saw religion as being harmful. And in later years, I realized that's how they prey on naive and impressionable kids. They get them in before they've had a chance to make other friends. I was exactly the gullible fool they were scouting for. The president of the club was only a student by technicality. He never graduated and just takes the minimum number of classes to be considered a student. He just stays in college to run that club and was in his 30s. In my later years of college, many of us experienced cases of losing friends to crew. Once they joined that, you wouldn't hear from them again unless they left the club. From what I hear, it also runs into money after a while, like a lot of money, and it works kind of like a pyramid scheme. Edit. Some of the comments here indicate this chapter of the club was very atypical, and I actually do agree, but given the number of stories and reputation, I still think there's a trend. Here's a better and more telling story than mine. And here's an old Reddit thread about the club that has some interesting discussion. Answer: I don't know if they changed since I was in college, graduated in 2003. I didn't have anywhere near the experience you had with Campus Crusade. I do remember that they were aggressive about evangelism and outreach. Other than that, they were pretty standard conservative Christian group. I didn't find them overbearing, and they weren't a men's club. 60 of the group was women, and they did not talk about self-care frequently. I did not experience any of the behaviors you mention. Story 29. Thank God someone asked this finally. Now I can drop some truth without having to derail a thread. I worked for about 10 years as an archaeologist, though I have recently moved into paleontology, and some of the bullshit that people believe in is beyond me. In the field of archaeology, the ancient Egyptians had a metric shootload of gods, approx 145 imperial shitloads for those of you that believe in freedom. Just because you read a book on Egyptology that only mentioned Bastet, Osiris, and Ammit the Croc, if you're lucky, does not make you an expert. Just off the top of my head, some of the lesser-known gods are Jazbel, the raven god in control of milk production; Nepis, the half-son of the jackal god Anubis, in control of both sand and the sounds that occur at night; and Themal, the invisible god,